Hello, and welcome to the LeLoni Grace Podcast. I'm your host, LeLoni Grace. I can't believe the day is finally here that I am starting my own podcast. I have wanted to start a podcast for years now. For anyone who doesn't know, I ran a beauty YouTube channel from about 2016 to 2019, I believe. And that process made me fall in love with creating content. And even back then, I wanted to create a podcast, but I didn't really have a topic or an idea of what I would even talk about in a podcast. But I recently started a new business and I found a community of wonderful, amazing, talented people that are also in this business. And I want an opportunity to share their stories with you. But before we get to sharing other people's stories, I'm going to share my own in this first episode. So let's run it back a few years, quite a few years. I've always known that I wanted to be my own boss. I initially got into hairdressing after high school and figured I could be my own boss as a hairdresser. And right after I graduated from hairdressing school, I ended up getting married and got pregnant right off the bat. So I didn't do hairdressing for very long. And unfortunately, after my second child was born, I got in a car accident that messed up my left shoulder and kind of cut my hairdressing career short because I just could no longer have my arms up all day. And at that point, I had two children and wanted to stay home with my kids. And that was another reason why I wanted to work for myself. So at the time, my ex-husband and I ended up starting several businesses together. And I fell in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur and building my own business and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, none of our businesses ever really took off, which now looking back is probably a good thing because we are now divorced. And if we'd had a thriving business, that would have made the divorce even messier. When I was a stay-at-home mom, obviously needed some kind of outlet to uh, connect with myself again because I was so busy just giving and giving to my kids. I started a blog and then it was just like a lifestyle, whatever blog. I started blogging about makeup and I had started watching YouTube videos about makeup tutorials and things like that. I was like, you know what? I could probably do that. Even though I didn't know much about makeup at the time, I'd always loved makeup. Anything to do with hair, makeup, beauty, that kind of thing, I loved it. So I sat down in front of a camera with lighting from my patio window on that side and like I think a lamp on the other side at my kitchen table. And I recorded my first makeup tutorial and it was terrible, terrible. Probably like this podcast is going to be because I have no idea what I'm doing with podcasting either. But I just sat down and I did it and I loved it. I learned how to edit my videos. I learned how to do all the things related to YouTube. I just kind of threw myself into it. And I'm doing the same thing here with this podcast. But I just loved sitting down and connecting with an audience and teaching. And now I'm kind of turning more towards storytelling. So this is an exciting new journey for me. So my story, obviously I've talked a little bit about my YouTube channel. That was really fun. Loved doing that. That kind of tapered off just leading up to my divorce. And then after my divorce, I just didn't have time to continue it. I also didn't have the same equipment. And so YouTube just died off. And I was suddenly thrown into this world where I had to make an income because I had been a stay-at-home mom for so long. I had had little side jobs and stuff. And at the time of my divorce, I was working at a little sandwich shop and it was not cutting it in terms of supporting myself and my kids. So I ended up working for Canada Post. And I was working as much overtime as possible. Of course, this was in 2020, this was during COVID. Everyone was ordering stuff online and getting delivered. Canada Post was hopping. And I was in the warehouse sorting mail. And again, backing up a little bit, I had suffered with back issues for years, starting back when I was 18. I was in a water sliding accident, sprained my back in 3 spots. And so I had dealt with some back issues off and on over the years. And when I started at Canada Post, it was a very physical job. Like I was lifting, twisting, bending. Like it's not just here's a letter, here's a magazine. No, I'm picking up like 50-pound packages. And so my back just started getting more and more irritated. And then I realized I have medical now. I can go for a massage. So I went for a massage. And the next day, I could hardly walk. And 2 days later, I couldn't get out of bed. And it was terrifying. This pain I had never felt before started in my waist and went down to my toes. Excruciating, excruciating pain. I ended up going to the hospital like 5 times in 1 week trying to get answers for why I was in so much pain. And they're just like, oh, it's just a sore muscle. It's this, it's that. They just tried to brush me off, as the medical system tends to do. And eventually I got in for an MRI and saw a specialist. And he said, you have a herniated disc. We're going to leave you be for 6 weeks and see if it corrects itself. Oh my gosh. Those 6 weeks were horrible, horrible, horrible. I ended up in the hospital a couple more times and they had me hopped up on all kinds of meds. I think at one point I was on like 5 or 6 meds, like serious, serious stuff, opioids. And I was still in pain. I was in so much pain. There was one day I was literally screaming in pain, worse than childbirth. I have given birth to 2 children naturally, one with an epidural, one without. This was worse than labor. And my mom ended up calling the ambulance and they gave me laughing gas to try to calm me down and get me onto, I don't even know, I was so out of it. They couldn't put me on a stretcher because of the way the stairs in the house were. We were on the top floor. They had to get me down to the ambulance. They had to put me on like some kind of a chair thing to get me down the stairs. But sitting was the worst position for me possible because it just made everything flare up. So I literally screamed the whole way from my bed down the stairs and into the ambulance. It was awful. It was awful. So bad. So terrible, terrible, terrible pain. After those 6 weeks were up, I went back to this specialist, the surgeon, and he said, he got me in for an MRI right away, told me that the hernia disc had gotten quite a bit worse in those 6 weeks and got me in for emergency surgery. So I woke up from surgery and my nerve pain was gone. Now that was just one part of my pain. So I had nerve pain literally from my lower back all the way down my legs. I had numbness, I had tingling. All of the nerve pain down my legs was gone, but my back, my lower back still hurt quite a bit. So I did all the physio, I did all the things. And I think about 3 months later, I started working again. 6 months after I started working again, I was back in the hospital, back in that same pain, nerve pain down my legs, but now it was worse. And they told me there was nothing that they could do for me. They said the hernia disc was fine. There was nothing pinching in my spine. They didn't know why I was in pain. And that has just continued. Eventually, I got in to see a pain doctor and started on cortisone shots. And that helped for a little bit. And I was able to go back to doing DoorDash for work. I'd signed up to do DoorDash again when the world was closing down and I was trying to get a job before I got Canada Post job. I was doing DoorDash and then I was doing it on the side whenever I could. And that was kind of the only thing that I was able to do because of the pain I was in. I couldn't find a regular job and show up and work 8 hours because I never knew if I could even get through 2 hours of work that day. And so I needed something flexible and that was able to, I could work around my pain. And so I've been doing DoorDash for the last 4 years and it has not been a sustainable income for me whatsoever. I moved in with my parents shortly before my back surgery because I was trying to save up money. Living as a single mom is expensive. And so I moved in with my parents so that I could save up and pay off some debt and get into a better financial situation. Then, so I moved in with my parents in February. In August is when my back went out. And I've been living with my parents ever since because I just haven't been able to get out of this financial rut. And when you don't know if and when you can work, it makes it really hard to get on a good financial track. Like I'm literally living week to week, figuring out what I can pay for. I've had to start GoFundMe's. I've had to borrow money. It's just, I've gotten deeper and deeper in debt over the years because I just can't even afford my basic necessities at this point. this year was the year that I finally broke down and applied for disability. It's not something I wanted to do. I never wanted to be reliant on the government to pay my bills. And that was a whole process. And I've not even yet been approved for disability. I had to apply for income assistance first. So I'm now on income assistance, which pays me next to nothing. Doesn't help a whole lot. And I've been waiting now 5 months to get on disability. So when my friend Lisa started posting on Instagram about this amazing business opportunity and she was getting checks in the mail, I was like, okay, I'm curious. What is this? So I texted her and she's like, get on this 20-minute call and we'll explain everything. So I got on the call, and by the end of the call, I was like, this is a really cool opportunity, but it, it's an investment and I don't have money to invest in a business. So I talked to my parents and I got them on the same call and we went over everything again. And I was like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't think I'll be approved for a loan or anything like that. But I did. I applied for a loan. I applied for, I think, 2 different loans, rejected by both. So I was like, okay, well, I guess this isn't for me. And I moved on with my life, and my back got increasingly worse. There's a lot of days that I can't even get out of bed because I'm in so much pain. Just sitting here recording this podcast, I'm going to be in bed the rest of the day after this. Like, this is a lot for me. Sitting causes so much pain for me, but I'm pushing through it because I really want to get this podcast out there. And yeah, just hit rock bottom, laying in bed in so much pain, wondering how I'm supposed to build a life for myself and my kids when I can't get out of bed most days. I told myself, oh, I'm going to cry for this. It's hard getting in that spot where you don't know how you're going to get out of things. This business just kept popping up in the back of my mind. I was like, that's one thing that I could do from bed. Like, I could literally, I can post on social media from bed. I can talk to people on my phone from bed. Like, this is basically the only thing that I can think to do that will get me somewhere. And so a couple weeks ago, I reached out to a friend. I was like, I want to do this. Like, I really want to do this. And she gave me a personal loan and got me into this business. And I am forever grateful because this business is going to be the thing that gets me out of this rock bottom. So I signed up on a weekend, and within 24 hours, I had someone placed under me and I made my first commission of $775. And I was up shopping with my son. It was around his birthday, and we had just been looking for birthday gifts for him with money that someone else gave me because I couldn't afford birthday gifts. And we had stopped in at the pet store after, and we were looking at the fish, and I got a notification that I had received my first commission. And I started crying, standing there in front of the fish, hugging my son. And I'm like, I just made a commission off of this business that I have been in for less than 24 hours. And it just blew my mind. And that's just the start of it. Then I started getting into the community of this business. I got added to group chats and I started adding these girls on Instagram. And my team is amazing. Amazing. Anytime you have a question, there's someone there to answer. There's someone to encourage you. There's someone sharing something. There's team calls every week, multiple times a week that we can get on and share our struggles and get guidance and coaching. And it's so cool. I was actually on a call. I guess it's been almost 2 weeks now. I was just on a call. A Q&A is like we could ask questions, and some of the leaders were answering them. And I raised my little hand in the little Zoom chat, and they got to me and they're like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I'm going to start a podcast." Just threw it out there. I had never even looked into starting a podcast, but it had been an idea in my mind, and I just threw it out there. And the leaders were just like, "Yeah, you should do that." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to do that." So I hopped on Amazon and I got a microphone, and it's taken 2 weeks to get to this point of recording because trying to figure out all the technical stuff, I had to order another to plug in my microphone to my phone. And and then I've had days where I've just been in too much pain to even try to attempt to do this. And today is the day that I am in a medium amount of pain and can sit in front of the camera and tell you my story. And yeah, so that gets us up to today, where I am recording the first episode of this podcast. And I am so, so, so excited to get some of the other team members on this podcast and sharing their stories with you guys, because our team is blowing up. There are women making tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on this team, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And I can't wait to tell you more of my story as this business just grows and grows for me. So that's it for this first podcast. That's my story. And I hope you stay tuned for what's to come. Thanks for joining me.